Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today I am out here on the 750 watt Lectric XP4 to see just how far this bike will go on a single charge using throttle only. Now for today's ride we will be cruising around in sport mode using the throttle, which is essentially the equivalent of pedal assist 3. And that's really a middle of the road ride setting, so that should give us a good idea of how far we can get on this bike. Now this is the 17.5 amp hour battery version of the XP4. So with the 48 volt system, we're looking at 840 watt hours of capacity, which according to Lectric, in the lowest pedal assist mode while pedaling, we can get up to 85 miles of theoretical range. However, we are doing a throttle only test today, so I'm expecting significantly less. And that's because, you know, when they do these tests, it's usually with a 180-pound rider on completely flat ground pedaling in the slowest level of pedal assist, basically treadmill conditions. So today should give you a good idea of how far you can go on this thing with a 200-pound rider. Now this bike does come out of the box as a Class 2 e-bike, and that is the class setting that we're cruising around in today. But regardless, both Class 2 and Class 3 have a top speed of 20 miles an hour in throttle only. It's only when you're in Class 3 and pedaling that you can hit the 28 mile an hour top speed. Today's ride will have us riding, you know, partially on some surface streets, and so I've installed my Mi-Chow handlebar end mirror on the left-hand side. That way I can get a good idea of who's coming up behind me, so if somebody's coming close or not paying attention, I at least have some opportunity to react. And you know, from a safety perspective, these mirrors are an absolute must. I've been using this particular mirror going on 2 years at this point, and have had really good results with it. Very happy, it's held up very well. I will include a link in the description below if you want to check that out. There's a bunch of different mirrors that you can get, so ultimately you want to get one that's going to suit your needs. Now I will be tracking today's ride with Garmin GPS, which is what I use to track all of my rides. That way we have a nice, accurate, and consistent way to compare this bike's performance to some of its competitors. If you follow my channel for a while, you'll know that on most of the bikes that I cover, I usually make an entire video series. So with this XP4, we did our media day event, we did our first ride impression out of the box, we did our endurance hill climb, our pedal assist 3 range test, and today is going to be our throttle only range test. So if you haven't seen any of that, I will include a link to that entire series in the description below. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Always happy to help. For today's ride, we will be cruising around the Powerline Trail. This is what I use for all of my range tests. That way we eliminate as many variables as possible, so that we get a nice, fair comparison. One of the nice things about this bike path is that it does follow a canal, and the canal system here in the Phoenix metro area literally goes hundreds of miles. It snakes all around the valley, and so if you live close to the canal, it's easy to hop on the thing and travel across the entire Phoenix metro area. So very fortunate to have that here. All right, looks like we got a horse up ahead crossing the bridge. Right now we're cruising through Gilbert's Riparian Reserve that's on the right-hand side. Basically, nice little water feature, groundwater recharge zone. Always get a cool breeze off the water over the summer. Something that I like about this particular route is that it's about 70% paved, 30% hard-packed dirt, so it gives us an opportunity to ride on varied surfaces. So right now we're on the hard-packed dirt and gravel area. This bike does have a front fork suspension, which does a decent job of absorbing a lot of the lumps and bumps in the road. It's nowhere near as plush as the suspension on like the XPeak 2.0, which has got the RST Renegade front fork, as well as the XPedition 2.0. Rides a little more on the firm side compared to those. But either way, it's nice because it's you know, absorbing a lot of the lumps and bumps in the road and help add to ride comfort, especially on these longer distance rides. The package that this bike came with also includes a suspension seat post as well as Lectric's comfort seat. But anyways, for today's ride, you know, I want to be very cognizant of how much voltage we've got remaining in the battery. You know, a lot of times, you know, battery bars on bikes aren't always the most accurate thing. That's why I personally use the voltage readout on these bikes. And so for today's ride, our turnaround point is going to be anywhere between 60 and 65%. And the reason for that is that, you know, on these rides, the first half of the battery is always going to be more performant than the second half of the battery. And that's because as you wear the battery down, voltage goes down, output goes down, speed goes down, acceleration goes down, and so you're going to get a lot more performance out of the first half of the battery than the second. And so if I were to use 50% as my turnaround point, there's a high likelihood I absolutely wouldn't make it back to my starting point. And so I always use 60 to 65% to give me a little bit of a buffer, and that's going to be around the 49 volt range. So once we get around 49 volts or so, we'll mark that as our turnaround point. I might even do 49.4 just to give us a little extra buffer since we're doing a throttle only range test. This bike does come equipped with 20-inch by 3-inch fat tires with a mixed terrain tread, which is a little bit of an upgrade over the knobby tread that the XP 3.0 came with. The end result is a much quieter ride experience. Quick little update here, we just crossed the 7-mile mark and we've been riding around for about 27 minutes at this point, making pretty good progress. Speaking of the tires, I do have them inflated to 37 PSI for today's ride. The sidewall says 25 to 45 PSI, and I found 36 to 37 to be nice and comfortable for most riding conditions. We got a little more riding on this hard packed dirt, which is about to transition into more of a gravel surface. But as you can see, bike handles really well on this, nice and comfortable. On some of the bumps here, you can definitely feel that suspension going to work. All right, so up ahead we do have our pedestrian bridge. It's going to be a little bit of a hill climb for us, and we're going to be doing it in throttle only, in sport mode if we need. We've also got Sport Plus as well as turbo mode. Go ahead and cruise on into here. All right, so throttle's all the way in. We're coming up this thing at about 9 miles an hour. If we were to bump it up into turbo, as you can see, immediately power kicks in and we're accelerating up this thing. So I'm going to hop out of that because that's not the mode that we want to do this test in, but just wanted to show you that if you need the power to climb hills with throttle only, you can absolutely do it with this bike's 750 nominal watt motor, 1310 peak watts of power, as well as 85 Newton meters of torque. All right, so we're coming back down the pedestrian bridge. Give us a good opportunity to put these Star Union 602 hydraulic brakes to work. We do have 180 millimeter rotors both in the front and the rear, and they happen to be 2.3 millimeters thick, which is a lot thicker than what we saw on the XP 3.0, which is going to reduce the likelihood of those things warping over time, and then you get the brake rub, but then you're always adjusting your brakes, and so it's nice to see something a little bit thicker. Not very common with a lot of budget-friendly e-bikes. A question that I often get with a lot of the bikes that I test ride is whether or not they have cruise control. Now, cruise control is going to be perfect for a place like this where you've got some nice long uninterrupted stretches of road, and this bike of course does have cruise control. The way you activate it is through throttle only, so you cannot activate it using pedal assist. It has to be throttle only. The way you do it is you hold the throttle at the speed that you want to, which could be a little bit tricky because it's a very springy throttle. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then you hold down the minus button, and that'll put you into cruise mode. You see a little cruise icon on the screen, and that's what we're doing right now. We're officially cruising around in cruise control, so I don't have to hold the throttle. A little less thumb fatigue on very long rides, and now we can just enjoy the scenery. Now you can deactivate that by hitting the throttle or hitting the brakes. That'll turn that off immediately. But anyways, what I was talking about this thumb throttle is it is very springy compared to some of the other thumb throttles that I've tested. There's a lot of resistance there. Nice solid feel to it. You know, it's not flimsy or anything. I feel like that'll hold up over the long term, but it just does take a little extra effort you know, to hold that down. So that's where a feature like cruise control comes into play. All right, we got some train tracks here, clear on the left and right. Right up and over that. Nice and smooth. Quick mileage update for you here. We just crossed the 14-mile mark. We've been riding around for about 53 minutes. That is 53 minutes. Screen showing 80%, voltage is showing 50.4, so we are definitely working our way through this battery at the moment. As I had mentioned, we will be using around 49, a little over 49 volts as our turnaround point, but we're not there yet, so we still got a little ways to go. And I'm going to go ahead and pull over here, take a quick water break, show you this glorious bike. So there's our Lectric XP4 in all of its glory. So far holding up very well. As you can see, I got my Kemimoto bag back here, and this is where I'll keep all my stuff like tire patch kit, water. In my backpack I've got a crescent wrench, I got Allen keys, a bottle of slime, all that fun stuff. That way if I run into any issues on these rides, I'm not stranded. I've got everything that I need. But anyways, we're gonna take a quick water break here. Enjoy the canal. You got some ducks out there having a good time. Little waterfall, I don't know what that is. But anyways, that's Arizona's Niagara Falls. But voltage 50.6. That'll slowly creep up over time now that the battery isn't under load. But anyways, I'm gonna get my water and we're gonna continue our ride. We are off to the races. All right, folks, so we're hovering around 49.5, 49.6 volts. I'm going to give us a little bit of extra buffer just because this is a throttle test. So I'm going to go ahead and get us turned around right here, and we will begin our journey back to where we started. And in case you are curious, we're using 17.8 miles as our turnaround point. We've been riding for about an hour and 10 minutes so far. Quick little comfort check-in. You know, this bike does have a more upright riding position, which is very nice for some of these longer commutes. I don't have any kind of pressure on my hands or anything like that. No hand fatigue to speak of. And what's nice about the upright riding position is you're not like crouched down, you know, where your hands take on a weight-bearing function. So upright riding position is great for some of these longer distance rides. No back pain. Legs feel great because I'm not using them on this throttle ride. And then the saddle is still comfortable. You know, sometimes these longer rides, depending on your bike seat, can get uncomfortable very quickly. But so far, this comfort seat's holding up very well. We'll see how things feel at the end. For all of you keeping track, we just crossed the 21-mile mark. Been riding around for about an hour and 21 minutes so far. You know, listening to this video as I ride, you probably aren't hearing much in the way of motor noise. The motors on these electric bikes, at least the new generation of electric bikes, are very quiet. They use their M24 750 watt motor on this bike. They call it stealth technology, and I can tell you firsthand, it's significantly quieter than most 750 watt motors that you have on there, especially on bikes in this price range. Nice little, look like a Suron, maybe it was something else, I don't know. But that's pretty cool. All right, so quick little mileage check-in. We officially crossed the 28-mile mark. We've been riding around for about an hour and 47 minutes at this point. Resting voltage showing around 45.6. We got 40% battery remaining, and we're making good progress. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, as you wear that battery down, you do get reduced output from the bike. And so right now I am noticing it's taking a little bit longer to get up to speed. It's not as punchy as it was in the beginning. And that, you know, kind of degradation in performance will slowly continue as we get closer and closer to 0% battery remaining. Now, generally speaking, I don't recommend running your battery all the way down to the bottom. It's not great for the longevity of the battery, and so if you do end up doing that, I would recommend, you know, right after that ride, giving the battery, you know, about an hour of rest to get its chemistry back in order, and then throw it on that charger. You know, get it charged up again. Looks like we got our chicken out here. He was out here last time. It's just going around doing a little grazing. But nearly every time I come out here, that chicken is walking around that grassy area there. I guess I got a bunch of chickens out there, so he's close to home. But yeah, riding around on this hard-packed dirt with gravel, some bumps in the road, it's a very, very comfortable ride. All right, looks like we got the light here. That's good timing. That almost never happens. All right, made it across. But yeah, acceleration is definitely a lot slower than it used to be. I don't know that we're going to be taking any detours today. You know, I think we're, from a battery perspective, kind of close to our target. Got some quail crossing the road. Got some baby quail. It's always fun watching those guys. We got a rabbit here on the left. What's up, buddy? Another rabbit there. This is the entrance to the Riparian Preserve trails. Another quail crossing the road. Now that things are warming up, you know, all the wildlife's out and about. Always be careful transitioning onto these paved surfaces. You want to make sure you get a good angle, because if you don't, that tire won't make it up the lip, but it'll just follow the lip and you'll eat it. You know, years and years of riding bikes as a kid has taught me a lot of valuable lessons. All right, folks, we are transitioning back onto the streets. I got throttle all the way in. Acceleration is markedly slower. Battery percentage on the screen is showing us 20% right now. Voltage, no load, 43.1. So we are near the bottom of the battery. We still got several miles to our, our starting point. So we'll see how we net out. Right now, throttle's all the way in. GPS speed showing me about 17.9 miles an hour. There we go, we just crossed over 18 miles an hour. So we're still able to maintain speed, throttle only, it's just gonna be a little bit slower. We're in cruise control right now, 14.5 miles an hour per GPS. Things are slowly starting to die down here. The voltage cutoff for resting voltage on this bike is somewhere around 42 volts. I think 41.9 or so, and we're right at about that level. So cruise control has us going 7 miles an hour right now on this kind of dirt path that we're riding on right now. Motor's putting out about 100 watts, 105 watts and dropping, so I think we're just about there. Here's some more like kind of river rocks, little test of the suspension. You can hear that definitely going to work. A little bit noisier. Cruise control is still on, 5 miles an hour. We are crawling. All right, folks, so there you have it. That was our throttle-only range test in sport mode with the Lectric XP4. On today's ride, we went 35.17 miles. We had an average moving speed of 16.1 miles an hour. We hit a top speed of 20.9 miles an hour. Elevation gain today, 417 feet, and we were cruising around for approximately 2 hours, 19 minutes. So as you can see, very respectable performance out of this bike today. Overall, very comfortable. My butt is a little bit sore, but a heck of a lot less sore than it would have been on the standard electric saddle. So I am starting to, you know, warm up to this electric comfort seat. Anyways, let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. Happy to address those in the comment section below. And if you do want to pick up one of these bikes, I will include an affiliate link in the description below, and if you use it to make your purchase, it absolutely helps support this channel and keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. As always, thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.